What's up guys, it's Toby here and welcome to a brand new news video where we will talk about that leading sports lawyers have warned the Premier League and UEFA that if they fail to punish Manchester City, if they are found guilty of breaching 115 financial fair play rules, if they fail to punish Man City, then clubs across the Premier League and clubs across Europe would revolt and they could face mutiny across Europe and there would be massive lawsuits in the direction of the Premier League and UEFA. Last week the Times reported that both Man City and Chelsea are among the clubs that could be threatened by a 30-point deduction plus potential relegation should charges be proved in an independent regulatory commission. But also some reporters at Sky Sports said that we could not see maybe a decision in 2 years, in less than 2 years, on the charges against Man City, which is an awfully long time, and it's no coincidence that Man City are not cooperating with the authorities. What should be Man City's punishment? Let me know in the comments below. But this is a very interesting article in the Manchester Evening News, writing in the International Sports Law Review. Dr. Gregory Ioannidis and Dr. Dan Plumley warn that if Man City do not face significant punishment for their offences, if they are proved to be true, it could cause huge unrest among Europe's top clubs to the point of mutiny. They are saying that there are different dynamics present that control the decision making of all stakeholders. Whatever the result of the present dispute, it is almost certain that UEFA will face serious unrest from its member clubs to a point of mutiny. The financial prowess of football clubs such as Man City, with expert lawyers taking apart the inefficiency and complexity of the regulations, can only demonstrate how weak such regulations are in their application. It would not be good enough for the Premier League to argue that Man City failed to cooperate with the investigation. The Premier League would have to go beyond this by proving that Man City, as a matter of fact and evidence, failed to produce accurate financial information and or lied about it in relation to their revenue within the meaning of the current regulations. So that's why this investigation takes so many years, because Premier League have to prove without doubt in all of the different charges that Man City did wrong. And this is not an easy burden for the Premier League, but it should not be easy because the allegations are a very serious nature. Should be the Premier League be able to discharge such a burden, the burden will then shift onto Manchester City or Chelsea if they are found guilty as well. And Man City would have to respond in turn and attempt to discharge the allegations. The sliding scale of the standard of proof will be in full force and action here. Advisors must make a note that the weight of the evidence and the manner in which it is presented may be the deciding factors in the final decision making of the panel. And I really hope that they truly appoint independent guys who really know the insides out of financial and business matters, because we need to get to the bottom of it and we need to get to the truth of it. And I think Manchester City are guilty, but until they are proved to be guilty by this financial or independent panel, Premier League panel, we only have to wait to see what the results of this investigation are. But I think a lot of people have seen the emails published in Der Spiegel newspaper, where even the Man City, some of the board members even celebrated a UEFA member passing away, saying 1 down, 6 to go or something like that. And also when the Man City fans themselves embrace this, cheating and rule breaking, then you have to question their morals. When they are putting banners up of lawyers in their stadium, I've never ever thought that I would see the day where a big lawyer would get a banner on a football stadium, in a football stadium. That just blows my mind where football is heading. And today there is another scandalous story breaking in The Athletic, that The Athletic asked for emails by the UK government and it proves that the Premier League agreed to settle their differences with the Saudi Public Investment Fund, with a senior official from the United Kingdom's Foreign Office, according to emails disclosed to The Athletic, that was in a conversation with a senior official from the UK government, which is absolutely scandalous, because the Premier League chief executive Richard Masters has previously said that there was no pressure applied by the UK government on the Premier League to let Newcastle be taken over by Saudi Arabia. But we already know about the long-standing, very close relationship between Saudi Arabia and the UK government. They have billions of pounds worth of contracts on weapons and everything else. So it was pretty evidenced when the takeover dragged on that the UK government stepped in and had a word to let the Saudi takeover go through by the Premier League. So the UK Foreign Office had to release 27 pages of new emails following a freedom of information request by the Athletic news outlet, and that proves that 9 days before the takeover, the UK ambassador to Saudi Arabia described being told by the Director of Trade and Investment for the UK government in Saudi Arabia that the Premier League had, in a conversation with another foreign official, agreed to settle differences with the PIFs so that their investment in Newcastle can go ahead. 2 meetings were actually held by the Foreign Office officials with the Premier League over the takeover, before the takeover was announced. And the day before the takeover's announcement, on October the 6th, an email to Woodward states that the Premier League officials sent a message on WhatsApp to a Foreign Office employee, which is repeated in the email but almost entirely redacted. The Foreign Office had a communications plan ready to greet both the potential approval and rejection of the takeover. And on the day before the takeover was announced, the communications plan included the UK ambassador welcoming the announcing on Twitter, congratulating the PIF, Newcastle United fans, and welcoming investment in the Northeast, which fits with the UK government's levelling up agenda. And even the day before the takeover, the UK Foreign Office distributed its prepared top lines, presumably for expected media scrutiny, so to save face. So this was a PR exercise. Foreign Office also said that while some critics of the takeover might discuss sports washing, the takeover presented a chance to show off Saudi's progress in promoting female participation in sport. I mean, what a load of nonsense. The emails suggest that the Premier League's insistence on separation of control led to the governor of PIF, and whose own lawyers described him as a sitting minister of the Saudi government, becoming a non-executive chairman, and they would appoint someone to run the club. So it's pretty clear that there was a very clear misinformation campaign and also a very clear push by the UK government to allow the Newcastle takeover to go through at the Premier League, because the Premier League is not run independently from the UK government, and Richard Masters, who was the Premier League chief executive, has absolutely been told that he has to accept this takeover, even though it's illegal by Premier League rules. You cannot have a country owning and controlling a football club, but that's what happens with Newcastle United, that's what happens with Manchester City. And because politics are involved, and because the UK government is in bed with Saudi Arabia throughout multiple years, for the last 10 or 15 years, with huge multi-billion pound contracts, it was always going to happen. And what is very curious is that some details in the emails were withheld and censored to protect commercial interests and to safeguard national security. So if the full emails would be published, it would probably tarnish the Premier League's reputation even further, and also it would pose a threat to national security, because probably Saudi Arabia would be so mad that these emails were made public that they would probably threaten or even like break up those contracts. And that's why the takeover went ahead. I told you guys at the time that the UK government will not let this takeover not happen, because Saudi Arabia would definitely tell them, we will break up the contracts and you will lose out on billions of pounds. And what is still a disgrace is the Premier League maintains that Newcastle is not controlled by the Saudi government, yet the emails reveal the extent of UK state interest that surrounded the takeover. 9 days before the takeover was announced, Crompton wrote an email to a Foreign Office colleague saying, Chad just briefed me on the Premier League's conversation with you, in which they had agreed to settle differences with the PIF so that their investment in Newcastle can go ahead. Assuming the details are ironed out over the next fortnight, this will be big news here and indeed in the Northeast. I don't understand the Premier League want to keep it private for now. And later that afternoon, Crompton received an email from Tony Kay, who is the Deputy Director of the Iraq and Arabian Peninsula Department of the UK government's Foreign Office. Positive news, Kay writes, before warning that we need to keep this on the tightest of holds, as leaks would be disastrous. So basically the government wanted to hide this, that they are in the background trying to smooth this over and making the Premier League accept the Newcastle takeover. And the Foreign Office even gave stock answers to questions like, why has the government not intervened to prevent this deal, especially given Saudi Arabia's history of human rights abuses, or even Jamal Khashoggi's assassination. Khashoggi was a journalist, a Saudi journalist, who has criticized the Saudi king or sheikh and also the Saudi government in the Washington Post, and he was murdered in the Saudi embassy in the Turkish city of Istanbul in 2018, according to a US intelligence report. The Newcastle owner was responsible for approving the operation that killed him. They basically chopped him up in the embassy, and that's absolutely horrifying stuff. And yet the Premier League and the UK government are letting this country, Saudi Arabia, taking over Newcastle. So that's all you need to know about how corrupt the Premier League is and how corrupt the UK government is. That basically for money nowadays you can buy pretty much anything in the UK. That's how Roman Abramovich got into Chelsea, and through Chelsea he got influence in UK politics, and that was the goal of Vladimir Putin, who was of course controlling Roman Abramovich's decisions. And now the Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have a massive interest in the UK, and already, Qatar as well own a lot of buildings in the UK and a lot of different companies. So I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm not sure you guys are interested in this, but I wanted to give you guys this news because it's pretty disturbing, and it basically just shines a light on something that we have all suspected went on in the background, because there is no way the UK government didn't influence the Premier League to circumvent their rules, or to just break their rules and not apply the rules to their takeover. Trent Alexander-Arnold also played the full 90 minutes for England, who already qualified against North Macedonia, and there were so many refereeing decisions, bad refereeing decisions in the qualifiers as well. I'm questioning now not just the UK referees but even international referees, because the way Harry Maguire fouled the North Macedonia guy in the box, why was that not a penalty? And then England got a penalty against them for a foul that was not really a foul, but maybe the referees compensated for their bad decision. Also, the Ukraine was absolutely robbed against Italy when Mudryk was fouled. Yes, he exaggerated the fall, that's true, but there was clear contact and there was a clear foul on Mudryk. His leg was kicked. So the Ukraine should have had a penalty to send Italy out and to qualify Ukraine for the Euros in the last minute or in stoppage time of their game, and yet the referees and even VAR didn't give the penalty, probably because they wanted Italy to go through. Ukraine can still qualify via the playoffs, but it doesn't feel right that Ukraine got robbed of a perfectly good penalty. Let me know how do you see the referees in Europe, because this was just a really bad day of refereeing, I think, yesterday in the European qualifiers. And I'm really looking forward to the Man City Liverpool game. I will preview that game for you guys in the next few days. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a nice day. See you later. Goodbye.